YouTube, back with another video. I'm intending this as a tutorial. It's possibly more of a cautionary tale as I make mistake after mistake after mistake. The first one's a particularly good one and I don't spot it for a while, so see if you can spot it before I do. These are swamps slash marshes for sagas. I've got the scatter pieces in there as well. Let's have a look. A similar starting point to last time. Some bits of MDF. This time they are quite irregularly shaped because I've cut them out with a jigsaw rather than taking pre-cut circular ones. And there's a large one that's smaller than 6 inches in diameter, which I will use for saga, and a couple of others just while I'm at it to just use as scatter pieces for Malifaux, for whatever else comes along really. And it's going to be similar, gougey, stick some holes in there, but this time I'm not going to build it up with polyfiller. I think that was a bit of a mistake in the stone circle. I think it made it look better, but it did have several days of drying time, which I could have done without, to be honest. So this time I'll keep it flatter, gouge out some holes, fill them with fake water. And then the next stage is just to sort of mark out, I don't know if you can see that on there, mark out where I'm going to gouge my holes, ultimately where the patches of water are going to go. I have gouged out the holes to take the water effects. That took a while. If you want my advice, don't get a battery powered Dremel, get a mains Dremel. It took several charges to get even that far. That's the first stage of the gouging. I have got a small second stage to put some grooves in for these. It's a daft little touch. I'm adding some dinosaur bones. Dinosaur bones, I don't think dinosaur bones exist in swamps. I think the acid will probably rot them. Human remains do, but human remains are a lot more recent than dinosaur bones. So paleontologically speaking, this is probably complete crap. I'm also going to paint them a bleached bone colour, which is also complete crap. They will probably be a dark brown if they were survived in a PT area for millions of years. Also complete cobblers, but I think without that they're not going to show up in the murky water. They may not anyway, they may just disappear and never be seen again other than on this video, but it's a chance I'm going to take. It's just a daft little extra touch that I'm giving a go. That's the secondary gouge done, and I've just gone in and just sort of embedded these bones into milliput. Also there's a couple of patches there because I've gone through. So there's a couple of holes I've made, gone right through the bottom of the MDF. Probably doesn't need to be that deep, to be honest. It's just using more resin, water effects, but you live and learn. I'm going to let that dry overnight. I'm going to blend it in with polyfiller, smooth it out some more, get some texture on the top, and then it'll start painting. So that's the polyfiller in, dinosaur bones in, all the rest of it. I have run into a slight problem, and this has come out from editing the video, so some of you may have spotted it already, but it's this. Oh, look at his face! Look at his happy, smiling face! And it gets worse! This guy here! You live and learn with terrain pieces, and I didn't realise about check for anthropomorphic faces in your puddle depressions. I'm going to have to work around this now. I'm going to have to work to try and sort of disguise that, break it up a bit, but as it stands I've got two really happy faces in my terrain. Never thought that would be an issue, never considered that I need to check for that, so that's an interesting problem to have. So there we go, anthropomorphic faces in my MDF bases. Oh, poetry. Anyway, don't do that, don't be like me, don't make mistakes like that. Back to the build. I've put some basic stuff on, I've primed them, and I've painted them. So it's the usual recipe. You saw it on the stone circle. It's burnt umber craft paint, dry brushed with slightly twee named in emulsion paint. I think it's like macadamia or something ridiculous like that. I've picked out a few rocks in a load of different colours, and then in the bits that will be the swampy puddles, not very neatly, I've painted dark mud from Panzer Aces One happy side effect is that currently the happy face isn't all that visible, but it may become more visible once I put in the glossy resin. I do possibly have a way around that though. We'll see how that works. And then the dinosaur bones I've just sort of picked out and fairly crudely dry brushed them. And this is almost the point of no return now. It's like, well, they're going to look like that forevermore. They might just disappear beneath the resin. They might be visible and look shite. They might be visible and look amazing. Yet to be seen. This is the secret weapon against them looking too happy and smiley. These are tufts. I've just sort of added a lot of them. Hope they're going to break up the puddly areas and then combine with the grass and foliage on the earthy areas. I'm hoping that I can rescue these. I can hope I can save it from happy face. Next stop, pour the stuff, point of no return. Bit wrong here. Firstly, it's convex. This is partly, I think, due to resin soaking into the reeds, so I just didn't put enough in, and partly just because, well, I should have spotted that really. That is actually what resin does. When it dries, it just shrinks. So I haven't put enough in. Add to that, there we go. I can sort of see the light off it there. Hopefully you can see there, it's quite bubbly. I did it last thing at night and just sort of did it, covered them up and went to bed. Net result, a lot of bubbles. Thirdly, I'm not overly keen on the colour, so it's hardly an unqualified success really at the moment. Now I think I've got, my choices are a few. There's a good few of some of the bubbles. I hope that's apparent. It's certainly very apparent to the naked eye. Well, my choices are several. There's the nuclear option, which is dig it out, put some more reeds in, do it again, different colours, pay attention to it, pop the bubbles, put more in. Cover it with opaque resin. So just mix up another load, some really thick, not thick, but a lot of brown ink in there. Cover it up. I'm not sure that's a good idea, because unless it's completely opaque, it'll be different depths in each hole. It might be different colours. It might even look worse than it does now. Slightly out of the box. Fill the bubbles with liquid green stuff and see if they look like lily pads. Another one, of course, is just to live with it. Well, you live and learn. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's it's still above average terrain and better than the stuff I've got now. So those are my choices. I'm leaning towards the dig it out and try again, because you live and learn. There's a lot of effort gone into it. It doesn't have to be the end of the world right now, so I could try and rescue it at least. Final one is even just think outside the box. Cover all this stuff in medium ballast. Paint it a much darker colour than the surrounding stuff. Cover it in gloss. I'm just thinking, the bogs where I grew up, and I grew up in the northwest, in a wet part of the country. They weren't standing water. It was just, very peaty to the surface and everything else, and the reeds will still look about right in there. That's another option as well. Just finish it all gloss so it looks wet, but it's not actual standing water. These are all things I can try, but at the very least you can learn from my mistakes. Put in more resin, put in what looks like too much resin because it will shrink, and anything else anything left over. So if you've got a big convex bowl or blob over the level of it will partly shrink down as it dries, and because there's no sort of surface tension like water, it will spread out a bit, so it'll give you this sort of glossy, everything's wet sort of look that I've got anyway just from pouring it sloppily, but that you get from this sort of overspill anyway. So those are my choices. I don't particularly like any of them. So my repair job of choice will be or is, to fill in all of the resiny bits. This is just medium, it's all medium ballast. I've just brush coated it, brush primed it black, and then I wanted a sort of a GW dryer bark, which is basically craft paint black mixed with burnt umber. I'll then dry brush this with burnt umber. So I've painted him in, dry brushed him up to buff, which is my usual sort of dry brush colour on bases, and also this sort of, you know, terrain to match this sort of thing. I put a couple of coats of gloss varnish on there. It doesn't look quite as glossy as the resin, but I think this is going to have to do. So I'm going to put some grass on this and call it a day. Couple of changes. Firstly, I've put on some clump foliage on there, and secondly I've actually gone back at them with the water effects. And the thing I had was the gloss varnish wasn't nearly as glossy as the resin was. There was bits of resin left around all the pools, so it kind of looked like a slug had been around them or something. It just wasn't so good. So I just thought I've gone back in, put on some water, and it all generally looks a lot wetter now. So I'll just put on some static grass and call them done. And they are finished. So I'll just put some static grass on there. So I don't know how the light is in here at the moment, so we've got nice sort of puddly areas, bits of grass, bits of foliage. They are not as I intended, they're not perfect. The one in the middle is particularly grassy because the water effects haven't fully cured by the time I covered it in bloody grass. Just one final mistake for you there. So I've got plenty of MDF left, I've got plenty of water effects left, and of course I've got plenty of the other stuff left, so I may revisit this. But for now, they're done. So there we have it, some MDF, swamps, marshes, etc. So in the interest of learning from my mistakes, because it's less boring, time consuming and expensive, let's recap. Firstly, get a mains Dremel. Using a battery Dremel took forever. I've charged it time after time after time. It took me the best part of a week to do it. A week of annoying my neighbours grinding out bits of MDF. Use more water effects than you need, so overflow it a bit, don't let it go convex, and don't do it last thing at night and just hope that the bubbles will go away. They won't. You need to get rid of the bubbles as well. Finally, and most importantly, don't gouge anthropomorphic faces into the bases of your scenery. It's upsetting. I've managed to cover it up, but I have spent a bit of this project thinking I've just done happy face, and well, you know. So there we go. Learn from my mistakes, don't be like me. Thanks for watching. I'll speak to you soon. Ta-ra.